Welcome in episode 1 of the Morning Brew with Matt Brewer on Main Street Sports. Now this is going to be a little bit different than what you've seen from us so far. We've been on YouTube, we've been on all other socials, but this is sort of our first go at something that's going to be a little bit more long form. Still going to be sports, still going to be what's popular, still going to be what you guys want to see, but it's going to start off with me, more so rather than the other guys, kind of throwing me to the wolves here to see if this will stick, how it's going to turn out, and if people will like it, really. But we did want to start getting some type of long-form content out so you can get sort of, a YouTube show, maybe a podcast, here and there. We'll see how things go. But this is what it's going to start out with. So it's called The Morning Brew. I'm Matt Brewer. And that's just sort of what it's going to be like. So what do we talk about? It's totally going to vary. I'm not just going to be a football guy, not just going to be a hockey guy, basketball guy. That doesn't really matter. What it matters is what's news. What's news, what's popular, and what do you guys want to hear? Me personally, what's my shtick? A little bit more football and MMA, which MMA will be getting into today as well because news broke very recently. Some stuff I'll get into there in a bit, but yeah, we're going to touch on all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure eventually I'm going to have some of the other guys join me on, maybe some other people. I guess we'll just find out and see how things go. But this is it. Morning Brew with Matt Brewer, episode 1. Let's see how we can do. So I was going back and forth on what I wanted to talk about here for the first show. Obviously, we got the Super Bowl coming up shortly in about a week. That's going to be a huge topic, but we figured we're going to have so much coverage of that on the other socials with the type of shorter form content we've already been doing. The guys are doing an unbelievable job at that. So we figured we'll leave the Super Bowl for them, for the time being. But rest assured, we'll all be tuning in. What we're going to talk about, huge news in the UFC, came out on Saturday morning, February 4th. Conor McGregor, he's back. So, gigantic news. Obviously, McGregor, the cash cow for the promotion, and the cash cow for the entire sport of mixed martial arts. So, McGregor, it was announced on Saturday that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will be coaching against each other in the 31st season of The Ultimate Fighter. So, Conor McGregor, for those of you who know, has already coached in The Ultimate Fighter before. He was against Uriah Faber. That was The Ultimate Fighter 22. That was back in 2015. We're getting close to 10 years ago now. So time goes fast. And that was really around when McGregor was kind of bursting onto the scene. That was right before he won his belt, his featherweight title. McGregor fans and really anyone a fan of the sport knows that he kind of was running through everyone. And then they're going to give him Aldo. Aldo gets hurt. He gets Chad Mendes. The rest is history. He stops Mendes. Then he gets that 13-second KO of Jose Aldo, taking names, talking trash along the way. And it's really off to the races for Conor McGregor. So you can really say, you can make the argument that The Ultimate Fighter was really where he got his platform to start, at least to the casuals. Obviously him, when he was coming into the scene as a featherweight, was running through the competition. But The Ultimate Fighter was really kind of what burst the casuals onto what Conor McGregor became. So now he's back. Obviously, the last time we saw him was in his third fight against Dustin Poirier, and he had that gruesome leg injury. His leg literally snapped in half, and he's been out since, rehabbing, doing whatever he's doing to get back. And people have been wondering. Obviously, the guy is more rich than you could ever imagine, more rich than I'm sure he ever imagined he could be. So people didn't really know, would he be coming back? Why would he come back? Why would he put himself through this again? Well, he's back, and he's going to coach against, like we said, Michael Chandler, who I think is a perfect counterpart, at least for the purpose of the show, to a guy like Conor McGregor. McGregor, obviously, he's got the trash talk, he's got the look, he's got the swagger, whatever you want to call it, but Chandler himself, especially if you watch any of his fights, after any of his wins, he kind of takes on this Ric Flair WrestleMania persona, and he's really all in on, selling fights, cutting promos, and really just kind of catering to the entertainment aspect of the sport just as well as the fighting aspect, which he's obviously no slouch in either. So I think the two of them going at it is going to be great stuff. Again, we've got sort of Ireland versus the United States, which we've seen, a couple times now with McGregor. And I think the coaching aspect is going to be must-watch TV. And at the end of it, obviously, the way it goes here in The Ultimate Fighter is that once a winner is crowned at the end, the coaches are set to face off and fight. So we are going to get Conor McGregor in his return to the octagon against Michael Chandler. We don't have a date or a location for it yet, but Dana White said earlier on Saturday that he anticipates it being in the latter half of the year, probably around September, October, which is good for Conor because it gives him, all this time to, like we said, cut promos and, the longer that you can span a Conor McGregor fight with all the buildup is obviously going to bring in the most amount of money. So it looks like they'll be fighting September, October-ish, latter half of the 2023 UFC season, if you want to call it that. No location yet, like we said, but obviously that's a fight that everyone is going to have to tune into. McGregor obviously must watch TV anytime he steps into the octagon, regardless of what matchup advantage you think he may or may not have. We still know he's got the power. We know his stand-up game is second to none. The thing with him, obviously he's not in the octagon that much anymore. Earlier in his career, he would fight 3-4 times a year. Now he's maybe a once-a-year fighter, especially recently, even less than that with his injuries, whereas Chandler's been more active, right? And that's the thing. That's something that I've said about McGregor is that, now he only steps in the octagon ever so often. It seems like, his last couple times out, obviously the leg break on the last one against Dustin Poirier. Before that, against Poirier again, he gets knocked out, first time in his career. So it's, it seems like he's starting to fall off. But what I've been saying, I still think that McGregor has, top tier talent. The problem is for him is because he's such a big name, he's such a big draw that you can't bring him back unless it's against a marquee name. And for a guy like McGregor, who has so much other stuff going on, to only fight, once in a blue moon and come back and it have to be against a Dustin Poirier or a Michael Chandler or a Khabib Nurmagomedov. Like, people say he's falling off, but this is the cream of the crop that he's been taking on. In his last, ever since he really won his belts, he's been fighting, the biggest names. The only time where they kind of gave him a sort of favorable matchup for him to come back and sort of get back on track was against Cowboy Cerrone. And we saw what happened there. It took him 40 seconds. So I still think to this day that if you bring Conor McGregor off any kind of layoff and give him somebody that's around the 10th ranked guy, I still think he can run through those guys. Problem is he's not getting a lot of work. He's not getting a lot of time in the octagon under the bright lights and all that. And he's facing off against top 3 guys every time. So how will this one go? Who knows? Chandler, I think this fight really, it's going to come down to how Chandler wants to approach it. I feel like every time we see Michael Chandler fight, there's a clear path for him to be the most, to give himself the best chance and be the most successful. But he decides to opt for entertainment instead. And he just swanging and banging with guys like Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, who are, again, some of the best guys in the world. Not necessarily guys you want to do that against. And he's come out on sort of the wrong side of those fights, although they've all pretty much turned out to be fight of the year, at least fight of the year candidates, if not fight of the years. But for Chandler himself, if he wants to get a win, the script is obvious for this one. You're going to have to try to take it to the ground. We know he's an elite level wrestler, wrestled all throughout college, and McGregor has had his biggest struggles historically against wrestlers. So the script is there. Is it going to pan out that way based on Chandler's recent history? It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's going to be a stand-up fight, which obviously plays more to the hand of Conor McGregor. And if McGregor can start getting wins again, Dana White is just going to be licking his lips to get this guy right back to the top where he once was. So that's kind of the big news here. Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler coaching against each other, the Ultimate Fighter 31. And then they're going to fight against each other probably around the end of the year, like we're saying, September, October-ish. So can't wait for that kind of thing. And then also, just something that I saw that was kind of hilarious. Dustin Poirier tweeted his reaction to this being announced. And look, Poirier, I thought has always been a little bit of an awkward trash talker. Hell of a fighter. You can make an argument he's the best in the world. in worst case scenario, a top 3 guy, worst case scenario, at 155 pounds. But he's always been a little bit of a weird trash talker. And when he's fighting McGregor, he's kind of trying to match Conor's level of, which, no one can match Conor's level of trash talk and just entertainment. But Dustin, that's never really been his thing. He sort of does all his work in the octagon. But let's take a look at this. So Dustin Poirier tweeted out his reaction. Obviously, Poirier's got wins over McGregor, 2 over McGregor, and he's beaten Michael Chandler as well. So he thinks it's the Ultimate Fighter season, as he calls it, with his children. I thought that was kind of hilarious. Dustin Poirier, congrats, man. You deserve it. You've got wins over both of these guys, 2 gigantic names, 2 elite level guys. Can't wait to see him back in the octagon either, but you gotta love stuff like this. Dustin, this one was funny. All right, so if you're like me and are a huge UFC, MMA, boxing, just combat sports fan in general, you can't wait for that, right? McGregor, Chandler, the show itself, the fight at the end, we cannot wait for that, but we're going to have to wait because it's going to take a while to start. I don't think the show I think they film in March. It's not really going to premiere until the end of May, I believe is what they'd said. But luckily for us, Dana White is showing off in what he's announced for this upcoming season. I guess he called season of the UFC throughout the rest of the year. And before we can get to any of the McGregor stuff, don't worry. There is plenty of top-tier fights, top-tier matchups, gigantic names that are going to take to the octagon and really kind of quench our taste of combat sports until we get to the McGregor and Chandler stuff. So, already been announced. I'm a little bit late on this, but we got to at least acknowledge Jon Jones, right? I mean, Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane, that's coming up. That's in about a month. That's a month, just under a month now, March 4th. Jones versus Gane, Jon making his return after how many years off, coming up to heavyweight, fighting for the vacant belt after Francis Ngannou vacated. It looks like he's going to try and go into the boxing world now. Some people talking about him fighting Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, who knows? He wants a big payday. He deserves a big payday. Love to see Francis back in the promotion at some point, but who knows if that'll ever happen. But either way, Jon Jones is back, taking on Ciryl Gane. That's going to be UFC 285. Jones also signed an 8-fight deal. So he's back, and, keep our fingers crossed that Jon can stay, out of trouble. Because Jon, obviously, you can make an argument, the biggest talent the UFC's ever seen. Maybe the most successful ever as well. He was the youngest champion in the promotion's history, 23 years old, I'm pretty sure it was when he won the belt. And he's really never lost. I mean, he's got a loss, right? But look at the highlights. He got a loss for beating someone up a little too bad. So Jon, he's never lost. Say what you will about his more recent fights, the Dom Reyes, the Thiago Santos. Sure, you can make an argument either way, but I think that's why Jon did what he did in moving up to heavyweight. I think he had ran through 205 pounds, and he was kind of just coasting. There's nothing really, you got to remember, this is a sport where that fire's got to be burning in your heart to compete, right? And I think he had ran through all the big names in the division, and he was kind of just coasting through it, and he realized that these guys are starting to catch up to me because I just don't really have that fire right now. So what he needed was a new challenge, something to get him excited again, the same way he was when he was younger and he was stopping all these legends, Shogun, Lyoto Machida, Rampage Jackson. I mean, he was running through some of the greatest fighters to ever do it in his early 20s. So now he's back at heavyweight, hopefully remotivated, new fire in his belly. Who knows what he's going to weigh in at? I think he says the reason he's taking this time off is that he wants to get up somewhere between 230 and 240. He doesn't want to be a small heavyweight. He wants to be, probably not a big heavyweight, but at least average size. But he's going up against Ciryl Gane, who, this one's interesting because Gane's a big boy. They're about the same size. Jon, he's got the reach advantage because he's got the reach advantage over everybody, but his advantage it's not going to be what it was at light heavyweight, right? So he'll have one over Gane, but again, Gane is one of the greatest strikers we've seen, in the heavyweight division of the UFC. I mean, the guy moves around like he's a welterweight. The way he bounces, the way he sticks, the way he moves around, I mean, he's hard to hit. So John, if I was going to be worried about anything for him, he tends to like to beat his opponents at their own game. So, you stand and trade with Cyril Gane. Can John beat him? He's capable, of course. I mean, the talent is just otherworldly for him, but can he lose? Probably, yeah. The path to winning for Jon Jones, it's very, very clear. I mean, Francis Ngannou took down Cyril Gane and pretty much won that fight on one leg because he was able to hold him down. And Gane really showed that he did not have much of any of a ground game. Well, Jon Jones does. Very, very much so. He comes into the heavyweight division and is already, you can make an argument, the best wrestler in the division. So if John just wants to get up to heavyweight, win the belt, and start running through guys again, what should he do? Get in there, close the distance, take down Cyril Gane, embarrass him on the ground, choke him out, or just ground and pound him out of there, make a statement, come back, you're Jon Jones, I'm back, I'm not going anywhere. So Jon Jones, he cannot wait for that fight. And that's going to be, like we said, UFC 285, just under a month, March 4th. That's not all, by the way. UFC 286. We're going 285, 286, 287 here, and then I'll let you guys go. 286, what do we got? Oh, all these big names. We can't have another, huge card again. Wrong. Welterweight title rematch. Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, 3. Usman obviously looking to avenge his loss to Edwards. And this one's going to be UFC 286, March 18th. It's only a few weeks after the Jon Jones fight. And this is what I mean when I say us fight fans, we're really, really getting treated to this. Edwards, obviously, with that improbable knockout to win the welterweight bout, to win the welterweight bout in his last fight against Usman. Kamaru was up on the scorecards, and he was going to win that fight. And then Edwards landed that head kick from nowhere. Beautiful, beautiful technique. Got Usman out of there, shocked the world, shocked me, shocked everybody, winning the belt. And it looked like, who was going to beat Usman if he got a second win over Edwards? Because then you'd have 2 wins over Edwards. You've beaten Gilbert Burns. You've beaten Masvidal. You've beaten Colby Covington more than once. He pretty much would have cleaned it out after that. So at least there's a little bit of fresh blood here. These guys are going to rematch. Cannot wait. Absolutely cannot wait. Considering that it wasn't, yes, that kick, you can call it luck, whatever you want. Leon was going to lose the fight if he wasn't able to finish it there in the 5th round. But, Edwards showed earlier in that fight, in the earlier rounds as well, he was also the first person to ever have Kamaru's back on the ground. So he wasn't just being outclassed for 5 rounds. It was a competitive fight. Yes, he was losing, but he scored that knockout win. So who knows what can happen on that. Really, really can't wait for that. And then guess what the co-main event is? Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. I mean, talk about performance of the night, fight of the night, bonuses. Stake your claim here. Can I bet it right now? That co-main event those guys are going away with some extra money. I mean, who's going to win it? I don't know. Fiziev is still on his way up, through the rankings, kind of running through everyone he's faced so far. Kind of a compact, explosive, really strong guy, super dangerous. But Justin Gaethje, by far the biggest competition he's faced so far. Unbelievable matchup. That's going to be, to me, reminiscent of when Gaethje fought Michael Chandler. They're probably both going to hit the ground a couple times. They're both going to be rocked. They're both going to get back up. And either someone's going to get stopped or it's going to go the distance and it'll be a fight of the year candidate. So absolutely cannot wait for that. And then after that, early April 8th, UFC 287, the middleweights are back. Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya 2 is what they're calling it, but it's really the 4th matchup between these guys. Because obviously they had fought in kickboxing beforehand. That was the whole storyline leading up to, their fight in the UFC. Was that Pereira had beaten Adesanya twice in kickboxing. How was he going to fare in the UFC? We know how that went. Similar script to the, Leon Edwards Usman rematch when Leon scored that kind of late knockout. Same thing. Adesanya was winning this fight. I think I've seen it recently. All 3 judges had already given Adesanya 3 rounds going into that 5th round. So all he had to do was move around and survive, and he won that fight. And Pereira, obviously, we know what happened. That left hook that is hellacious. Catches Adesanya, stops him. Again, shocks everyone. That's why this sport's so great. It's the only sport that you cannot afford to miss a single second. But just put this on pause just for, an example on my own. When McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds, I had all the friends and family over. We were watching that one live, and I missed the actual knockout because I was on my phone or something thinking that, this fight will probably take more than 13 seconds. Nope, I missed him. I looked back up. The fight was over. So that's why it's one of the greatest sports in the world. I mean, combat sports in general, you literally cannot afford to miss 1 second because anything can change. So that's what happened in this one, and the rematch is coming. So Pereira and Adesanya going back at it again. What's Israel going to do? I mean, you got to think at this point, he handled it so well last time, and he's handled it well every time. He tweeted out, I think, another chapter goes to Pereira, and I'll be back, and this, that, and whatever, and he handled it great, but you got to start to think. I mean, this guy keeps finding a way to beat you, and he's shown that you can beat him. You can almost have him out on his feet at the end of, I think it was the first round in their last matchup. And fifth round, it's just the guy is dangerous for every second of that 25 minutes, and he's going to be in this one. So this is, it's a bad matchup for Israel. Can he beat him? For sure. He was on his way to beating him last time. But I'll tell you what, the rest of the division hopes to God that Adesanya loses this one as well. Because Israel had run through everybody else. Robert Whittaker, he'd beaten him twice. Marvin Vettori's got wins over him as well. So these guys that could be champs, if these other guys didn't exist, are chomping at the bits to get their shot at Alex Pereira, because they saw what happened. Israel took him down, was able to do some work on the ground, and we know Israel's, that he's a striking specialist. So Robert Whittaker's licking his lips. Marvin Vettori's licking his lips. If Pereira can come away with this win, who do you give him next? Maybe Whittaker? Whittaker loves that matchup a lot more than he likes, another go at Izzy. Can he lose? For sure. I mean, Pereira can knock anybody out, but I'll tell you what, the rest of this division, they've had enough of Adesanya, but he's not going anywhere. Again, another matchup, April 8th. Cannot wait to see it. And again, the co-main event, Dana's doing us favors here. Who do we got? The BMF, Jorge Masvidal's back, and he's taking on Gilbert Burns. This is a tough matchup for Jorge. Jorge's kind of, to a lesser degree, I think right now in the same space that Conor McGregor's in, where he's such a big name, he's such a big draw, you can't really give him a matchup that's kind of lower tier. So he's always going to be fighting these top tier guys. He gets Colby Covington. That's hard for him. He can't get through that. He gets Usman. Again, one of the best guys in the world. Excuse me. And now he gets Gilbert Burns, who a lot of people are forgetting about, but before Burns fought for the title, and eventually lost to Kamaru Usman, he was looked at as one of the most dangerous guys in the division as well, a guy that was going to give Usman some problems. Obviously, what happened in that fight, Usman stopped him because of his greatness, but Burns can strike. His jiu-jitsu is some of the probably top 3, definitely top 5 jiu-jitsu, probably in all of the UFC. And he's just big, strong. His ground game is elite. So that's a tough fight for Masvidal. Obviously a gamer. He's coming to fight. He's coming to win. Another one that probably has performance bonuses written all over it. So these fights, guys, I'm telling you, we got the Conor McGregor Chandler stuff. That's coming in a couple months. Before that, John Jones, Cyril Gane, he's back. Edwards Usman, again, the third time. What's going to happen there? And then Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya with those co-main events that I mentioned before. So, fight fans, not too bad. We got some good stuff coming our way. It looks like it's about that time. I'm at the end of my coffee. You guys are fed up with me probably at this point. And I'm about out of stuff to say right now. We're still working through the kinks here of how this show's going to go. It'll get more structured as it goes on for sure. I'd love to hear some feedback, some engagement. I'm sure I'll get torn apart by the other guys on Main Street for missing a bunch of stuff and whatever. But look, we're not perfect here. We're learning as we go. My coffee's done. I'm done talking. You guys are done listening. that was about it. That's the first episode of the Morning Brew with Matt Brewer on Main Street Sports. You'll be seeing it every Monday. Hopefully, if you guys tune in. But that's when it'll be on the site or on the YouTube page and hopefully other places as well. But that's going to be it for this time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Morning Brew with Matt Brewer. Take it easy. We'll see you next week.